Huh. We are out here at a new part of the Booth residence. So let's go ahead and get into it. I didn't expect it was going to be such an equal scale to the Fort Bend Museum, the Moore residence. Yeah, I was like, wow, this really is like a pretty grand house, and they've got extra. Yeah, this is amazing.
Well, guess what? It was probably built around
the same
era.
Yeah.
And if I knew more, I would ask, where the fish scale, wood on the outside, it's called fish scale, apparently, came from. Freeman Irby Booth designed the first part of the house, which is on the other side, and the kitchen was external, of course, and there's one room in the middle where he came with his wife, and the women would come while the men were working on the railroad.
On the railroad, gotcha.
And so there's this whole history of the financial ability to provide, let's say, support for the transportation industry, meaning the railroad.
Mm-hmm.
And that came before the Model Ts came, and that came, of course, before the modern day gasoline engines that don't use leaded gas anymore.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of see 3 generations of the transportation industries that led subsequently to, let's say, less air pollution and less leaded gasoline pollution, and
right.
Things have gotten better, so to speak, but there are still some pretty powerful forces that want that progress to slow down.
Yeah, because there's 3 floors even, so I would love to go through and kind of pick everything with a fine-tooth comb and see what all, because I imagine there's still historical artifacts in there as well.
It has changed very little for 100 years.
Yeah, so I would love to get through there.
I'm embarrassed by all the silverfish. I've paid for a lot of upkeep, electricity and
when you're not
repairs.
Physically living in a house, and a place this big, it's like hard to do, so it's understandable.
First story contains this one room. It's called the green room.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle, and when we go inside I'll show you the green room. And Aunt Dot used to sit there and use it as her desk, and she had pictures of the ancestors in the green room because that's where they spent their time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of strange, but even today it's kind of neat to have the pictures of the actual people that spent time
in there.
In that room.
Yeah.
And then during my mom and aunt's lifetime, the living room was the first story, was sort of built, and so Aunt Dot and Mom's portraits are there. So
right.
Their portraits are in sort of the living room built later. And my grandmother didn't like to have her picture taken. I still don't know why, but anyway, his picture is in the living room, where he spent more time. So it's got, it's kind of like an archival database, When you see people there, you'll know if they're the older generation. Well, you'll know, well, this room was around then, and then it extends.
Yeah.
Then the bedrooms were built upstairs because you could get a breeze, and
right.
There was no air conditioning. And there's a sleeping porch with screens off of every bedroom.
Yeah, that was
heat.
Something else that the Moore House had, because they had explained the the youngest brother in the family of the Moors, when they had first moved there, he preferred staying out in the mesh screen area,
Oh,
so
for
then he wouldn't get eaten alive.
sure.
But it was really nice and cool, as where the ladies preferred to stay inside.
I don't know why.
Probably because it's a little bit cooler. So
But yeah, so that screen over there, and then there's a screen on the other side of sleeping porches, and then the top level. This it's not exactly a widow's walk, but Freeman Irby had traveled to New York to get an education in being what would be accounting and bookkeeping and running a building. The place where he stayed in Poughkeepsie, New York, had a boarding house, and I'm guessing this but I've seen his handwriting on keeping the books, and of course he had better handwriting than I'll ever dream of.
any of us, really.
And so it lists the people that came there, including, I believe, Clem Bassett, who is a Texas Ranger,
Oh, crazy.
and including now this I promise I couldn't make this up on myself, but one of the signatures, you know, on the sign-in sheet is Jesse James.
Wow.
And I thought, nah. So I haven't put all this together. I've been so happy that you and Rose are kind of in cahoots. To
Yeah,
come and
we're
learn
definitely in
everything.
cahoots.
So anyway, I'm trying my best to save the paperwork, but the building is usually of more appeal to people because they can believe it all.
Yeah, this is a living
Smell it.
part of the
Yeah.
history. Yeah.
And the plants that are here, some of them Dee Dee brought in, so I don't have the same sense of smell anywhere else, and I think it's just that she imported a few. They are, but I'm working on that. But I need help putting this all together, or bringing in a specialist who might really be able to
Tell exactly.
tell it. I'm just overwhelmed by, you know, the things that are here that I don't know about, even though I've been here
Yeah.
all my life.
Well, and I think that's the thing about history, is that unless you had the people there to tell you, it's hard to know for sure, and that's why we have books and whatnot. Do we want to start making our way around to the other side? Also, I gotta note, I love the fact that there's just a bell that is screwed into the side of the tree over here.
Yes, sir. That was what was learned at lunch to call the hands in. They would go to the fields at work in the mornings, and then the cook or the gardener, their names were Evie and Bob, I'll show you where they live, would ring the bell, and then that meant come in from wherever you are, you know,
Right.
within this, you know, half mile on either side, and they would eat lunch in this, backyard.
Right.
Freeman Irby built this side of the house first. One room inside here with the bay window is where the women slept inside for the first while, and then he built a second room where the men slept inside. And of course, back in the day, it wasn't like everybody got up and trudged off to work. There was a lot of telling of stories and
Community time.
Community time is what, yeah. And so it's a different culture today, but this area had several tables like this around them. And, here, and the help would come in and all eat, you know, at the circular tables, and then they go back out. And I'm not sure about this, but I know that the people who were here as the cook and the gardener, they would go home. They just walk down the gravel road. It's about a mile that way. And I'd like you to see Miss Lily's house.
Yeah.
I put a new roof on it.
Was that the one over, the one north of the goat ranch?
No, it's a different one.
Okay.
You got more to see.
I've got too much to see, apparently.
This kind of big acre in here where the tree has fallen was a pecan tree that was planted sort of by my grandmother's family, but it was not big enough to shade the garden. These are pecans. And so the garden actually got full sun, and Bob Jackson would raise like at least 15 different vegetables. You know,
out of it, yeah.
From artichokes to tomatoes to squash, something called cushaw. The way you eat cushaw is to take it and pour lots of sugar and butter on it.
That's the way of the South.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing, because these are huge.
Are estimated to be well over 300 years old.
They're beautiful.
And in fact, this is a marker tree.
Oh,
And,
wow, look at that.
So when the surveyor came, he would pick out the biggest tree in the neighborhood, and he would start surveying from this point. You know, there was no digital, you know, drop a pin.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So this used to be deeper. I can remember it. You know,
Tree is healed since then, but it's still got the scar.
And the people who worked in the surveying department that still exist would come back every 3 years and remark it. So it's branded, with with heat every 3 years up until about 10 years ago.
Oh, wow. So that was going on quite recently.
Yeah. So, yeah. And so I just pray that nothing will happen to this tree. And I tried my best. I finally just shrugged off my concern about the receivers and the droughts, because I started looking around, and they were smart back then. What kind of tree did they choose?
Oak.
Would they have chosen a pecan that can't take a drought?
Take a drought? Yeah, no,
They're smart.
it's not.
They know. I mean, and so this marker has probably lasted longer than any of the steel rods that are in the ground.
Yeah, as
that
they're
are used
exposed to so
today.
much rust. I mean, I was amazed at the fact that if that pump was 50 years old, the darn corrosion on the bottom, like, I can't imagine that it's going to really be able to be restored back to its original condition. It's just, at this point, it's going to have to just be preserved as it is. So I'm guessing that this was a pool that was over here.
This is what I used to call the duck pond.
Oh, okay.
My grandmother would give me a stick, and I'd go over to the duck pen,
Uh-huh.
and I'd take the stick, and I would herd the ducks. You know, I was 7.
Yeah.
And after we filled it up, it's got cracks now, and they would have a grand old time, and then I'd herd them back, and they were happy, and I was happy, you know.
Wow.
So the process of raising livestock to me is a very healthy one for
Yeah.
any children, and I've probably been to New York, I don't know, 50 times, and it would be terrible to live in a New York apartment.
This little house here is so cute.
This is the dollhouse.
It is like literally a giant dollhouse.
It was built for Mom and Aunt Dot to play in. And I want you to see this. There's
Oh my gosh.
Mickey. He's sleeping on top of her canopy bed. I'm so sorry to show you this. And there's Minnie. And I think that there was a real baby that spent some time in that little, rocking crib.
Yeah.
And if you go to the Cudmamie and Cudden Albert museums or see the pictures, there's furniture very, very,
Very similar, yeah.
So even though everybody who comes later says, "Oh, well, this is the only one I've ever seen," they were all friends.
Right.
So. These are called 4 o'clocks. The little pink flowers come out and they point at the sun at 4 o'clock.
Oh, gotcha. I'm gonna have to come here another time and document that.
There you go.
I also brought out the machete, so if there's any other things that are a little bit harder to get to,
Okay.
We can hack our. Oh wow, see, yeah, there's that place. I'm guessing that's where the garages are.
That's yeah, and the garage apartment above it is where the gardener and the cook live before they would go home to their own families.
Oh wow, so this is the. Holy moly, honey! You got a beautiful spider there to take a photo of.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Here, come on over if you're scared of him. I'll take him down. I'm okay.
No, she's gonna take a photo. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, all of this stuff. I mean,
That's a big spider. I'm not.
those are actually really good spiders to have around because they eat a lot. Look at this.
And all the bugs and all of this stuff. Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, so you would bring in the hog here, the domestic hog. He would be killed outside. They would drain and keep the blood, and then they would bring him in here and butcher him. And one of the department heads at A&M came out here and he said, Polly, I bet that this equipment hasn't been moved since they used it last. And I said, that's probably right.
Probably right, yeah.
And so that's the benefit of leaving something where it stands. And we can't do that, at the goat ranch anymore because
It's gonna go anyways, so you just gotta pull it out. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, they bring the hog in. They would skin him in a hot vat of boiling water because that takes the hair off, and then they would butcher him here. And this is the running water. It used to work, but it doesn't anymore until I, get another one of the water wells fixed. I have fixed each of the wells on my own, but I just don't have any help or power right now.
Yeah.
And then
Watch out for the
the
wasps.
same fellow from A&M came back and he said, I bet this has been here in its safe spot. And I thought, how did he notice? But see, this was the favorite.
Oh, that's a beautiful knife.
Yeah, it's one of those that you can use.
For trimming.
Yeah.
Old hickory.
I mean, if you had just one size, that might not be a bad size.
I wonder who's
That was a
DP.
breaking. Because of the shape of it, that was for breaking. They used it. That was like one of the
That's why I bring him here.
purposes. So based off of the shape, like when they start breaking stuff, and especially on a hog, so depending upon the size of the hog, so when after they scraped the hog, a lot of times the skin was left on because they could use that. It was crispy, so it was still edible.
I didn't want to say because I thought I might offend somebody.
No, so that's all still very
You're right.
edible.
They
And
did. They took
so
the
they-
hair off and left the skin on.
But so the boiling vat loosens the hair, but it's like a trick to not get the water too hot. It has to be between 170 and 180 degrees. And then they have scraping tools. So I'm surprised I haven't seen a scraper here. And they would, and it's,
could be
it
somewhere.
looks like a, the like little discs on cymbals.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like basically like that, and they're usually about a big around, and then they have a hole drilled in the center of them, and then they have a wooden handle on it, and you take that and you scrape all the hair off. So then all that hair would stay outside, and then they would come in here, and then they would start. But that was more than likely like one of the finishing breaking, like just doing the final cuts. It wouldn't be a trimming around the bone. Boning knives are always very thin and very flexible.
I see.
So that's a smaller breaking knife, is what that is. And then they would have a bigger knife that was a bigger breaking knife that would be also a favorite.
There's a whole community of people that still kind of come back and they love to visit, and I'm not the only one.
Right.
We could get them.
Absolutely.
They would have, memories of.
Well, maybe that's what we need is we need to reach out to them in general and start gathering more information. Do we want to?
Let's keep going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
I still. Yeah.
Very, very good. When you finish the circuit, if you have any concepts in your mind on how you would break it up, Milo,
Yeah.
I know you're working with Rose, so she can give you, advice too. I'm open, but my point is if you would break it up, I do databases all the time.
Right,
But
so
mine
that-
are different. Mine are for projects, on a work site that conform with generally accepted accounting principles. That's not the case here. Here it more conforms with the story of the person or the
Right.
or the job.
But that's the beauty of you understanding how databases work.
Oh, yeah.
Is that
I'm
now
a database junkie, but
right, but you understand the value of being able to split it up, and then it relieves you of the burden of feeling obligated to like getting like I like this
Yeah,
huge sense
instead
of
of
urgency and
organizing
getting you to like
a million grains of sand, I can organize
now,
20 houses,
yes.
and each house has 3 rooms, or
And then everybody else that has information to add to that, they have an easy place to go to do that.
That's the magic is pulling the
Not just
eyes
yours,
of others.
but everybody
not
else's.
just mine.
Absolutely.
Exactly. I can't help it. I want you to know that this is a walk-in free.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
And the first room is where Dee Dee used to keep the turkeys and the hogs, after they were butchered right away. You just, and of course, at the store that you asked about, the brick building.
Yeah.
That's where they imported from, all over.
When was that one first created?
I don't know exactly, but I'm going to guess around 1930, 40,
Okay.
when the Model T came, because it became a gas station.
Interesting. That makes sense.
Really wanted to use the Model T, so
Yeah.
And then people could walk there or drive there to get their loaf of bread. And we even have a list of the inventory. Bread. Charlie Simpson down the street liked tuna fish sandwiches. How do I know? He bought bread and canned tuna fish every Sunday. And then the next room, there's another door just like this, and the next room was the freezer.
Freezer, right.
So they sold ice, so they probably built the freezer first, and if you came here and bought 5 pounds of pork or beef, then you would walk home, with a bandana that held the ice and the meat, and then I don't know, they put it in a hole in the ground, or they had something called ice boxes. I still call them ice boxes. So they were just above ground.
Just
thick.
insulated. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are roses that were brought over by, I believe, the colonists, but I don't know which one. This is a quiz. What is this?
I was thinking of smokehouse.
So easy.
Yeah, that looks like it.
No pause.
You
no
got
nothing.
you got a bunch of ashes down there, and there's plenty of rack stuff to hang
But
up.
this would have been used for sausages specifically because you would not typically, if you're preserving meat, you would do cold smoke. So this was actually done for sausages.
Sausages, interesting.
Correct.
How did you know that?
Because cold smoking, you want the fire pit away, and you have to cool the smoke before it gets to the meat for long-term preservation.
Well,
So it's
Charlie
techniques. Yeah.
and Bob, they would put pecan, and they would have. I'm not sure. Do you put water on it to make it smoke?
You could do water, so that's a water smoker. So it's a different technique, but all same principles.
Oh,
Absolutely.
okay.
So sometimes they would to keep the humidity higher.
At the time, I was watching Charlie Simpson take the sausage down. He had a long rod with the links over it,
Yep.
and he would bring it down, put it right here on his neck, and the sausages were balancing, and then he would go through that gate, and he'd go through there, and he'd put it in the refrigerator, because if it smoked all night and it was 30 degrees at night, not a problem, is what he would
Right.
tell me. But he said, if it gets over some temperature, it'll spoil. And so it was his job to.
So the preservation of meat becomes very unique. And you're talking about a pivotal area of how meat was preserved, because prior to that, meat could be preserved, but it was smoked differently. So they were smoking, so there was a higher moisture content in the meat when he was doing this, because that's more enjoyable to the palate. So the texture of it is significantly different. Whereas if he was doing something like, if you were doing the preservation side of it and you were storing the meat for long-term like we are going to eat this in 6 months kind of a
Yeah,
scenario.
jerky or something.
Right, that's going to be a completely different texture. So this era is when you started to see different chemicals brought in for not in a bad way. So celery is one of the items that was actually put into the meat so that you could preserve it longer. And I can't remember the exact chemical that's in celery that does that.
Right.
But it's actually like it's a technique. And so the Germans, blood sausages and stuff like that could actually be stored longer durations, but this was a completely different style. And this is the beginning of a different era. So this right here is actually, for me, this is like super, super exciting because this goes back to our roots of like modern smoking. This is like the beginning of the modern smoking.
But it tasted better.
It was because it was so much more enjoyable to eat. Yeah, absolutely.
And I cannot tell a lie, you know. I just was explaining that Dee Dee focused on the farm and the ranch and feeding people. And my grandfather worked in town at the bank. And some people might think, well, they should have worked on the same thing. No. You want people that work in 5 different industries all the time, because when banking goes down, you can sell groceries and you know, vice versa. So I feel that the major, biggest reason why this is still here is because they were diversified. They sent all of their children off to school, had to go, and it was great. But you know, you just, and then of course I come back and I, you know, I think, you know, transportation, ranching, farming, banking.
All these things make sense.
The oil and gas, which has been so environmentally terrible, but you know, now it's better, and you know, so we'll research, you know, other energy. They actually built the largest coal burning plant that I know of in Texas, which is over by the George Ranch, because the men, it was only men at the time, but the men would all get together and say, electricity is coming. We need a coal burning plant, and that's what they built. I mean, they did. It's in the history books, you know, and I can show you at least, you know, that part.
Right.
And because the corporations kept pretty good records, they just and Papa kept them in his files. So I have a glimpse into some of the corporate stuff that would not be stored here at the house, and this is great. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to show you the open door first. It is the milking parlor.
Okay.
No matter how many times I close it, you know, I have a nephew or somebody curious that wants to come see it, and that's fine. Or a storm. And Milo, this is where you might say I cheated. I made all these statements about the goat ranch because, see, I recognize the height of that cement.
Yeah, it's about the same height as the other one. Well, I mean, we were just there, so it was a little bit shorter than that. But he was even a little bit stumped on what they would have been using that for, just because it's just kind of a strange way that they had all the.
This would have held like a cow or two and a calf or two.
Yeah.
And then what Bob Jackson would do is he would close this door and he'd keep the calves in here. And then the hungry mama cows, I'm sorry about all this.
No, it's okay.
See, this doesn't belong here. So even though it's been here 50 years, this is not part of this barn. So I'm going to get rid of it.
Yeah.
I'm teasing. But this is where the cows, see, 1, 2,
Yeah, they would
3,
stack all the hay in here and.
and they would get the hay and corn and whatever, and they were very well trained cows, you know.
Yeah.
After just 1 year, you'd know. So Bob would let her stick her head in,
And close it,
close
and
it,
then.
that way she couldn't, you know, pull out and kick the bucket over. And he would sit right here on a 3-legged stool and milk.
Work it into the buckets.
And then he would carry it into the dairy, you know, and clean up. And then he would carry it into the house where his wife Evie would be using the milk to make cornbread and
Right.
everything else. And on the horse side, so I got distracted. I'm happy. I am happy. See if you can do that. I'm gonna stand back because you may not be doing. Oh, it works. Okay. This used to have a weight on it. There's the weight. Somebody nice left it, and
So it's shut behind you?
yeah. So this was tied just where you're thinking, and so you know, who needs a spring, right? You got a rope. And it was a big invention to have electricity at some point.
Yeah, this seems a little bit more cobbled in. So was this structure here before the electricity was brought in?
I would
Because a
think
lot of
so.
this is cement, and something that he had noted earlier is that a lot of the cement work is more modern. So I don't know if maybe they had added it after the fact or what. Oh wow, look at that.
That
whole
is
little
the
carriage.
Shetland pony cart.
Oh my gosh.
And so my mom bought it around 1980. So it's new.
Right. Yeah, I always thought that was kind of neat.
But
It's got
I
rubber
am
tires.
dying to get another one and a Shetland pony because they could be perfectly happy here grazing, and if I can fix the water wells. We have 5 on the property and only 1 on this side of the tracks works, and it's a half mile. Well, that looks like one of the dog beds. The Great Danes used to follow it all around everywhere. But up here there used to be a little pot-bellied stove. So I'm not sure whether somebody took it or not, but maybe it's still up here.
I think this is this it right here? Or is that that looks like it could be like a boiler or something.
It looks like somebody, it's the little one behind it.
Oh.
I said pot-bellied.
Oh yeah, this.
Forgive me. It's just got 4 legs, and
Yeah.
you'd stoke it with
Yeah, that's the kind of stove that we would find like in an old cabin up in the
That's-
mountains because it's
that's
so
what I'm
small,
trying
it's
to
easy
say.
to get out. Yeah. It's definitely a
so
smaller.
It does not belong up here either. Not long enough to say, no, it was never used in here, but you would know it from common sense. But I'm gonna guess that when they were picnicking and cooking, you know, this was the camping stove, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I do remember when they filled the hayloft with hay, and I do remember when they had even more pots in this to grow plants. Dee Dee went off to boarding school. She was sent off to boarding school in, I guess, junior high, and you just did it. It wasn't like you had a choice, right?
Right.
Because that was where you could learn to read and write like you should. Okay, so good. So she took an interest in horticulture, and so I think that she was the one that brought in, lots of different plants and grew them, and now the garden doesn't have them anymore, but maybe I can find her ladies' garden records. I don't know. I guess I should call it the Ladies' Garden Club before I give up on that one.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that circular one, it came up here in the last 20 years, so I'm not sure where that one came from.
Yeah, do you know what that is, Mike? Is that like a boiler or a
Distiller?
Distiller?
I'm guessing.
Oh,
No, I
And
mean,
Papa
but-
made hooch in the bathtub.
But the other side of that is, here's the other interesting about that. You needed that to do tinctures. So if you had somebody that was big time into herbs and stuff like that, your tinctures a lot of times were separated using alcohol and needed a distiller. So that I actually, fundamentally, I believe that that's more the primary purpose of it. I'm not saying that they didn't use it to make other hooch, but
Yeah, I thought the
most of
bathtub
the
was
other
used
stuff,
food.
but a lot of that other stuff would have been done in larger batches. So this right here would have been something, I'm guessing, that's why I wanted her to take lots of pictures of it so that I could do a little bit more research. But I'm speculating that that was the original intent, and that's why it was up here, was because somebody was big into herbs and they would make tinctures and then sell those off as remedies.
And Dee Dee's grandmother was a lady named Polly Ryan, and she became a traveling doctor back in the 1850s.
So that would make sense.
So that would create the sense of urgency, like this is important stuff for us to do. I'm guessing.
How did they know?
Because, I mean, it was...
Survival rates. Like,
Right,
it's
like-
experimentation over a period of time and it's passed down generation to generation.
I mean, why do we mix in dill when we make pickles? Why do we, why was pickling a thing? Why was, and we're just now, my generation is just now coming around to well, wait a minute. This is the healthy aspects of it, right? When you pickle, I have a bunch of pickled okra at home. Well, I eat a bunch of it. Well, pickled okra feeds good gut bugs, which keeps healthy digestion going. So there's a whole series of other things that were, due to modernization, were kind of forgotten about. So I look at that and I go, wow, this is really cool because this is probably what happened. And now you bring up the doctor and now you bring up all the other aspects of it and it's oh yeah,
because-
more than likely
because you're
it really did.
Killing me. I mean, if we weren't here physically, Milo, I'd never be able to.
Oh,
tell
well,
him
there's
any
too
of
much.
this.
There's
I would just
far
look at
too
you
much.
and I do my best, but I can't tell you all the.
Well, and that's what
Sub
this is for too.
details.
So
Yeah. So it's really cool. Yeah, so
Yeah, so also you need to do essential oils, so lemongrass oil and stuff like that, that would be used as a bug repellent. You would need a distiller to actually boil.
And the mosquitoes were just.
horrible. Absolutely.
Yeah, they could
Yeah.
carry you off.
yeah,
So,
well, and plus if they have all their own diseases that they carry as well, so
Correct. So it was
good reason.
advantageous. That's the natural side of what humans did to get to where we were all the way up before the Industrial Revolution. So some of this stuff is the Industrial Revolution kind of left it behind, but the people who came here originally, the foundation was all put there because their understanding of stuff came out of pre-Civil War era. That was their education system, right? So you're seeing a lot of that stuff so you're well, there's gaps here where it doesn't make sense. Why would this be here other than for this one reason? But there's multiple reasons for every aspect of everything. And so looking at everything, and I'm overwhelmed. This is a sensory overload for even myself. So it's
I
a
hope you
blessing
sleep
that
and
it's
feel better and,
just
and reset. I tell your father tomorrow. I hope your brain is reset
Set.
and ready to go again.
right. So, but for sure, let's keep moving along.
Yeah.
So this rope was repurposed, and I gotta throw this out there. Okay, so this right here was actually a cowboy's lariat at one time, and they repurposed it. And how can I know that? Is because you can tell by how stiff the rope is, the winding of it, and so I look at the length and I know how hard the knots were to get tied into it and what they did to tie it up, because those are all treated in a wax type substance to make them stiff. So that you can twirl the rope. That's from being a cowboy.
Yep.
So that's just a little bit of additional tidbit on that rope. It was repurposed.
Yes.
So it wasn't bought purposely for this, just hanging the weight on it, but rather it was, hey, go get one of your old ropes. We're cutting it up and we need this and this and this.
And I just spent a couple hours yesterday with my friends who have saved a little black church in Richmond, and it was the first one of its kind in Richmond, and it was the first minister was an African American woman of all things, and they got a marker for it about 3 years ago when it was just turning 100. And so I was with my family who raised me. I was spoiled because I was I know I was, in terms of my care as a child, these wonderful caretakers, people today call them mammies, but anyway, I called them by name, and they would dress me and feed me and clothe, and they just did everything for me to be ready to run out here. So it was a different way of life, but I still love them to pieces.
Oh, absolutely.
And so excuse me,
Oh.
I've helped
Right behind you.
them
There you go.
too, with their history, and they've made it a little farther than I have because they have the marker, but they, for some reason, are not confident about talking about their history as much, and I kind of get it because they went through so much of a worse time than I'm in. I mean, I complain all the time, but their complaints were life and death complaints.
Yeah.
And mine were not really.
Yeah. Well, did you want to show us the house and get this all closed up?
Thank you. Yes. This is now the Great Dane area, but it used to be part of the chicken pen.
Oh, okay.
And so that's why, this big heavy fence is here.
Yeah.
And the Great Danes would cool
Chickens
off.
are crafty little birds. You'd think that they wouldn't be able to do so much with their tiny little heads.
Completely. They used to, when I was little, I'm sorry the fence is broken. I did pay to fix every one of the gates 10 years ago, but and behind. At least I kept the lights on. This was without the dog pen there. They must have raised 200 chickens here, and so if you sort of think about it, and you ate, I don't know, if you calculate out how many chickens you'd need in a year to feed a person, it's going to be more than one, right? Okay, got that. So let's say that you need 100 chickens to be able to produce enough eggs and meat to feed a family of 10. I don't know. Well, back here, there had to have been 200 chickens. You could not walk in there barefoot, or you would be sorry. You wouldn't be allowed in the house for a week. But the point I'm trying to make is that the chickens tended to stay in here. We had a lot of varmints and raccoons, so there is a chicken coop back there. It became the doghouse later, but they would all run in there at night. They knew where to go, and there were hen boxes. And then the men would come out early in the morning and open the door, and everybody made themselves at home. And so there's some gates over there, so you could call these all free-range chickens, but a smart chicken raiser is always going to feed them in here, so they'll come home, right?
Yeah.
And so they raised corn. And so they always had a year and a half worth of corn in that silo.
And that silo over there. Gotcha.
And I remember it was kind of on the cob then, but they had wheelbarrows, and you'd just make the trek from there to there, and you'd have enough to feed your family year round and several workers, right?
Right.
And I wish I could have thought of all that. And that is the first water tower. So
Wow.
that's
Oh,
the
geez,
first
I didn't
one.
even look up to see that.
I would like to fix it up on the inside and turn it into a water tower again in case we have a fire, and that would give us
Plenty of water. Yeah,
pressure.
well, especially since if you've got electricity running through there still, and there's nobody living in it, that's a concern.
Yeah, so they had a fire system, and I'm just lucky that the place hasn't, knock on wood, had trouble. So.
Yeah.
That little tree over there had the light bulb, that came down out of the ceiling and heated the space. And
chicks.
yeah, so on a cold night, they'd all be gathered under the light bulb, and then on a warm night, they would all
Spread out.
spread out. And of course, I couldn't figure it out. When you're a kid, you just
Oh, what's going on here?
yeah,
Yeah.
you just. But it was a great education. And you see, it's up a little ramp because the raccoons are less likely to go up the ramp. I guess if I had it to do, I'd build it about 10 feet high because the raccoons still, come in. But that's why you would want your dogs to live
Sitting around, yeah.
that you can nurse, So, how did they think of all this? I am certain, absolutely certain, they lost quite a bit before they.
Well, in Mother Nature, you produce exponentially more than what you need so that everything can continue forward. So,
I hope you're right.
Mother Nature does, there's not just one oak tree, there's not, you know what I mean? If there's millions of oak trees, then oak trees will continue to
Proliferate, yeah.
Give me hope. I have been unfortunately discouraged by the damage I feel here, because under my life it's become this, and under their lives it was working and healthy.
But is that but the other side of that is that you're bridging. Think about it this way: you're bridging 3 different eras of style of living.
Sure.
So your emotions, while you're tied to the feelings and the smells and the sensations that you experienced when you were little, right? And you revisit that, and then you're now you go through the process of making yourself feel guilty because of how things have gone. But is that really, instead of feeling guilty, let's just change that a little bit and flip that jar upside down and reset the clock, because now you can get with Merrick's help. Then you're getting all of the stuff, you're just
are happening.
all your childhood experiences now can come to life.
That's what I pray for. I do, and that's it. It's so easy to.
Oh boy. I don't have a whole lot of time left here on this.
Okay, let's go.
No, it's okay. The battery power is actually doing okay, so I can just go swap out an SD card. I just want to make sure that, because I've been recording for an hour now, and I know you have responsibilities as well.
Come back to the other houses. I guess we'll just we'll drive down the road and back, and then I can let you go. I wanted you and Mike to know that these were made before cement came here.
Yeah, these do look very old.
So it's aggregated, rock and old cement, but they've lasted really well.
Yeah, a lot of
They
the stuff
haven't
does
cracked a
seem
lot.
to, yeah. I wonder if it's because of how they seem to naturally allow things to flow through, and they're not big enough slabs so they can move, because usually you get cracking because it's a giant slab, and as the earth moves around it, it's going to change where the weight is distributed, and so then it falls and rises and falls, and eventually that causes. But these are such.
So they knew to make this walkway in mosaic instead of one slab. I don't know how they knew that, but my grandmother did hire this landscape designer who just made all of this. I'll just say how beautiful. We could talk a lot more, but maybe there'll be a landscape designer who can kind of resurrect the different plants. There were different flowers and herbs. She didn't grow vegetables here. She grew the herbs and flowers.
Wow.
In this area. And then this is the only place where we had water. The water had dropped quite a bit more. And there's a red-eared snapping turtle in there and a hognose snake. He's not poisonous. And then over there, you can probably see one of the buck that lived here with his doe and his fawn for many good years, and then he died over there looking at the stars. I was so upset. I wrote plenty of emails about trying to water these trees and not having any water. I carried water in from Houston in the back of my car, and you know, you'd start this high and it would
Drop
I'd
down.
lose it all in the back of the van. So I just couldn't do any better than I was for that 2 weeks.
Are there cars in there?
Yeah, and they're kind of old and a mess. There's a long story, but the lawnmower, the zero-turn lawnmower is here. Evie and Bob lived here, and exactly. I mean, wouldn't that be neat to come on to your room and there's, you know, this artwork, and this was some kind of a doorbell. You turn it on the outside.
Oh. That'd be kind of neat. Yeah. It's like a little keyhole.
And it would kind of ring, or, you know, and
like a ding 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 ding. Yeah.
So
Can
we need
imagine
to figure that one out one day. And then of course this is the screen door, because you know, if you wanted to breeze, you better have a screen.
Yep. So you don't have to deal with the bugs. Also, I've noticed a lot of these older buildings, you can feel how old they are by the staircases being so aggressive. They really take you upstairs quick.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, if you look at a lot of the newer buildings, they take more time with the staircases. Wow, look at this.
And my grandmother fixed this all up about like 40 years ago, maybe 30. And now, since nobody's lived here, it's kind of stayed the same. I came here from California, and I brought this, and somebody stole all the silverware, but I don't care about silverware, so what do I care? I really just care. This, of course, the outdoor furniture should be outside, but somebody nice carried it in just so, you know, there's some place to sit. But Dee Dee had this all fixed up so that somebody actually could spend the night here and be comfortable. And I wish I had, you know, kept up with it. But this was, you know, one of the, you know, old bedsteads, and she had it repainted. And so I need to do that again. If I were going to choose one place to fix up as an apartment,
This
it
would
would
be-
be this set.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
does not have a kitchen because you see the cooked
Cooked
in
in
the kitchen.
the kitchen.
But you know, a hot plate in here with a coffee pot, that would be everything I would ever need. And you have to, if you want to stay on site, you just have to take things in bites.
Yeah.
But so somebody smart would probably have a trailer and modern, you know, amenities, but I wouldn't even need that. You know, I just need a big cleanup.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely, of all of the buildings, this definitely seems, you know, pretty. And I'm sure once we get a chance to go inside the main house, I'll probably get a better perspective. But I mean, this is all really well kept. I mean, it probably just needs to be swept up and,
Yeah,
you know.
and people could come here. You know, you could use it as an office and a computer thing.
Yeah.
You need better, faster Wi-Fi, but this is, I guess, if
Outdoors.
you came back in 10 years and you hadn't seen me, hopefully I'll be here.
Yeah. I'm sure
Trying
you
to
will.
work on, you know, something that would be. You know, I don't know why they put the cedar in there, except that somebody must have had that experience. With
Yeah, I was wondering.
silverfish and the bugs and the, you know, the wool clothing all getting ruined.
Yeah.
And in the winter, it was freezing here a bunch of times. So at Christmas was when my grandparents would give the help a Christmas present, and it was mostly like a red wool flannel shirt.
Right.
And so you pretty much had to have the cedar box. And so somebody did the whole room.
Which is crazy because cedar's it's hard to find out. That's why they.
Yeah.
So there's just some absolute amazing architectural aspects to the property that are just like refined. Like that was incredibly expensive on its day.
I think that in one of the buildings we don't quite have time to go see. I think that inside of it, the electricity doesn't work in there, but I think that that's where the old sawmill equipment maybe was stored at some time.
Okay.
Because most of these pastures were trees. You know, this was not exactly Katy Prairie. It was forested because it's in the flood zone. So I haven't figured out where they started, but over on that property that we need to go to that's on the north side of the goat ranch, and we go see that house. It has fish scale on it too. It's a real old house. I call it one of the Novak houses.
Yeah.
And you can see where they cut a swath of maybe 40 feet wide of trees and probably sawed it up for the house. And then you can see trees that are like 20 years younger, and there's another swath. And so they cut the trees down nearby and built a house.
Exactly.
So it was that part of
Alrighty, I'm gonna end this video recording here.
That's going to be it for this one here. Polly was very generous in showing us around this property. It's gorgeous, it's huge, and there is a lot of history with it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Go ahead and subscribe if you want to continue following the situation here at Booth. I just posted a video recently about the goat ranch, and I have another video coming up about the South Goat Ranch. So stay tuned for that. All in all, this has been a really cool experience to partake in, and I really hope that we can make a difference here. So take it easy, guys.